Was that something that evolved with, say, Mark's look? I always liked that version of where he had the headband, the shades on, the white BC Rich.
Yeah, I mean, BC Rich, what an awful guitar. Thank God he had a good Telecaster. But that's how Mark looked when I first saw him. Why fuck with it?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that's something that kind of evolved or even through Almost Once Bitten, I'd say maybe the video for Face the Day, Jack's hair was sprayed up quite a bit, but really they were kind of calm as far as their look goes. I'd say David Coverdale, if you look at like Still of the Night, he's kind of pretty toned down. And by the end of that tour, he's looking like an old lady that smoked a lot.
I mean, if I remember correctly, if you look at, is it the back of Once Bitten where Jack is just wearing a very nondescript gray raincoat?
Yeah, maybe that's Shot in the Dark. I can't remember, but yeah.
No, Shot in the Dark were individual pictures.
That's right. And they had where he had maybe his motorcycle or something. And he even had like pictures of. Oh, okay.
That was my bike. You know, that was the creeping influence of MTV. The image had to be sharpened up.
I always wondered, is that, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole here, but I wondered with Jack, I assume he's okay with it because he went on TV a decade or two ago getting hair plugs and shit like that. But was that a full-on wig?
No.
That was his real hair?
No. A whole bunch of people used to go to a guy called Peony, and Peony would give you weaves, which were basically nets with hair your color, and he would pull your own hair through the net until the net came down tight onto your scalp, and if you were losing your hair, it gave more body to the hair on your head.
And even on top, they would weave hair in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jack was fine with having a weave because he could hide his stash under it.
His drug stash?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I think him and Mark Kendall definitely got some extensions or extra hair added around that area.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think if everybody's honest, there is that moment of trepidation before you go on stage. I mean, there was one time I was at Farm Aid, and I was standing next to Don Henley, who was about to go on and perform, and he was a bit fidgety, and I looked at him and said, "Don, you got nerves?" And he turned around to me, he said, "Knowing what you're about to do, if you don't have butterflies, then you don't know what you're about to do." Everybody has that little moment of stage fright, that moment of apprehension before going on. And, you know, with a lot of good-looking guys with lots of hair and so on and so forth, there's that sense of insecurity of, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to look good enough? So it's no surprise that people would go to Peony and get a little bit of a weave put in if it made them feel more confident. Because you're about to go out there in front of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17,000 people and try and put them in the palm of your hand. And that takes a little bit of balls and brass. So, you know, if somebody wanted to go and get a little bit of extra hair put in their head so when they looked in the mirror immediately before going on stage, all power to you. With some bands, it got ridiculous. Aquanet and so on and so forth. And in that respect, Great White never was a hair band as such. You go back to what you should assess, and what you should assess is the catalogue. And what songs do you find there? And what do they tell you? And how do you connect to these songs? That's what matters. I mean, the people who cared about how much Aquanet were the little girls who were putting up pictures of Vince Neil in their bedroom. God help you, little girl, if Vince Neil ever gets a hold of you.
You brought up Don Henley. Anytime I hear his name, I always think of, I worked gigs back in my 20s doing some staging stuff. And it was like him and even in the 90s, or when Creed was big, but both those guys, we were like told, don't make eye contact with them. We were instructed. What is that about?
That's something to me that I find weird, and I think it goes to a combination of inflated self-ego that simultaneously has a tale of insecurity, because those people who know who they are and have a confidence in what they're doing will look you in the eye and say, hello, who are you? You know, I spent some time working with Clarence Clemons. And I think it's fair to say that Clarence Clemons is an icon who was known around the world. This is a guy who played pool with Fidel Castro. One night, he and I were out having dinner, and this big group came in and sat at the table next to us. You know, this guy with a big retinue of people. And Clarence looks at me and he says, do you want to meet the champ? And I go, are you fucking kidding me? And we get up and we go to the next table, and Clarence introduces me to Muhammad Ali. Clarence knew everybody and everybody knew Clarence. And there was one time we were in a supermarket doing some sort of promotion for the guy who owned the supermarket. And Clem was signing CDs and records. And I had two questions. I said, Clem, why are we doing this for this supermarket? And he said, this is an old friend of mine I've known for years, and I'm doing him a favor. And while he was sitting there doing a favor, there were three older women who were not in the best of condition, came up, and Clarence was really sweet to them and talked to them and looked them in the eye. And I went, Clem, those three old biddies who came up, you were so sweet to them. And he turned around to me and he said, oh, I partied with them 20 years ago. All right. Clem knew who he was. He would look you in the eye. He would be charming. People who say, I'm going to walk down this corridor and everybody has to avert their eyes, they're little morons.
Yeah, I just always wondered what the fuck that was about. Like, why aren't we allowed to look at the singer for Creed, but the rest of the band doesn't give a shit, but that guy doesn't want any eyes on him at all. And sometimes you're just working the gig. You don't give a fuck about that person. You're just working.
You walk into the John after the singer from Creed has used the toilet. I'll tell you, it'll stink as bad as everybody else's. So this don't look me in the eye bullshit it's just silliness. It's egocentric silliness. Cannot be looked at. I mean, you know, give me a break.